All right, everyone, happy Thursday. So we've just wrapped up Chapter 4, Lesson 1, which was giving you an introduction to cell theory and some of the scientists that helped us to come up with the different components of this theory. So now we're going to just start our introduction to cells. Most of this will be continued in the second bimester, but we just want to give you guys a chance to get familiar and start recalling some components of this topic. So, as with every new chapter, make sure that you have all of these vocabulary words copied with their definitions into your physical biology notebook. Always good to have those as a reference. And the first thing that I want to talk about when we are looking at cells, are all cells created equal? What makes cells similar and different from one another? So one thing that we need to look at when we're looking at different types of cells is how structure and the shape of cells affects their function. In other words, cells need to be in a certain shape, size, or have a certain structure in order to do the job that they need to do in the human body. So when we look at the human body, not all of our cells are the same size, same shape, or do the same function. So all four of these pictures show organs or cells that we have in our body. So some of them may be obvious, probably this guy in the middle. So here we see a sperm cell. And when thinking about sperm cells, these are sex cells or gametes. And in order for reproduction to occur, a sperm cell needs to find and fertilize an egg cell. So if the sperm did not have the genetic information here in the head and this tail in order to move, then it wouldn't be able to do its job of finding a female's egg cell and fertilizing it to create an embryo. So keep that in mind. Without that structure, the sperm cell wouldn't be able to do its job. Taking a look over here, we've got a picture of our skin, some zoomed out skin cells, probably on the palm of someone's hand or maybe a finger. So when we're looking at skin cells, they are flat cells that are kind of like plates formed together. So skin is meant to help to protect our internal organs, prevent pathogens and diseases from getting inside our bodies. It also helps to regulate temperature, perhaps by sweating or by raising goosebumps if we're cold. So skin has a lot of different jobs that it needs to do in order to keep our body functioning properly. But again, without that flat shape of the skin cells, they wouldn't be able to perform that function. Just very briefly, we've got other cells here. You may recognize these as well. These are neurons, part of your nervous system. Their long structure helps to send electrical messages throughout the body in order to transport information and instructions around the body. And then over here, this is a picture of your retinal cells. So in your retina, in your eyes, you have cones and rods that help to allow light in, they're light receptors, in order to allow your eye to process that information and allow you to see. So again, all of these cells have very different shapes, sizes, and structures, but they are arranged in that way in order to do their specialized job in the body. Another thing that we can compare and contrast with different types of cells are their sizes. So cells can vary greatly in size, but in terms of how big a cell can grow, there are limits. So there is a reason why we don't see 10-pound bacteria crawling around on the floor. So cells are limited by their size, specifically the ratio between their volume and their surface area. So we need to compare how much volume is inside the cell versus its surface area. How much space is on the outside of the cell? The reason being, as a cell gets bigger, it needs more nutrients to come in order to grow and function, and it also produces more waste. So through the cell membrane, more nutrients need to come in and more waste needs to move out. If the cell gets too big, it has more volume, more need for nutrients in and waste out than the surface area can allow in and out. Basically, the cell membrane won't be able to keep up with the needs of the cell, and it won't be able to continue at that really large size. So take a look here. When the surface area to volume ratio is too small, in other words, if the volume of the cell demands more nutrients and more waste out than the surface area can provide, then the cell won't be able to survive. So that is why we see cells divide. Once their volume to surface area ratio gets too big, they need to split in order to lower that ratio again. So, in other words, in order to build larger organisms, they need to be built of small cell subunits. That's why we as humans are not made of one big cell. We are made of many different smaller cells in different shapes and sizes, because if a cell was the size of our body, there would be too much demand for nutrients in and waste out for our surface area to allow. So, the bigger a cell gets, the more nutrients it needs, the more waste it needs to get out. And if a cell gets too big, the cell membrane can't keep up with all of that movement of waste out and nutrients in, which is why cells divide. So, that is where we are going to stop for today. Later on in this lesson, we're going to start talking about different components that all cells have, also reviewing which cells are considered prokaryotes and eukaryotes, and what those types of cells have or don't have. But that is where we will pause for today. Thank you guys.